AITA for leaving my cheating wife and her child for good. I like to keep this as short as possible and leave out any unnecessary details. If you feel like you need more information, just ask. Also, English is not my first language, so my wording might come over a bit strange at times. So last week, due to a digital blunder, I did find out that my wife of 7 years has been cheating on me 5 years ago. When confronted, my wife did confess, and I further learned that our child is a result of said affair, hence, it is not actually mine. Cheating is an absolute no-go for me, and she knows that. So after I had the confirmation, I immediately decided to divorce, for which I will be filing soon. Now when it comes to my kid, something in me changed as well. I always wanted to have kids, but to me it is important that they are biologically mine. So I decided to not only leave my wife but also her child for good. It will be up to the court whether I will have to pay alimony, and if I have to, I will. But I will cut all contact. I know it will be hard for the kid, and I know that the kid did nothing wrong, but neither did I. I did not sign up for this, so I am walking out. My soon-to-be ex-wife and her infidelity is to blame entirely. Am I the asshole? Edit. Talking about strange wording. Many people are criticizing me for referring to the child as it. Sorry about this. I honestly did not know this was inappropriate in English. I have no idea what you could be feeling right now, because I grew my offspring in me. A lot of people who become step-parents and then divorce the parents still want visitation and a relationship with the children they raised, regardless of whose genes they carry. It is mostly about the child and their relationship to the child. I still visit and talk to a man my mom was married to for 10 years while I was 25 or so, and I still consider his sons my brothers. My oldest still calls him by his grandpa name, and he still cares about her. I think you might be very angry right now, and maybe should take some time to think and clear your head and understand what kind of person you are, what you want, and who you want to be. This sub is full of teenagers and rowdy youth who have no idea what family, marriage, raising children, infidelity to this degree, etc. is really like and what it entails, so grain of salt all the comments. I have no judgment or advice except take some time to really think about this. Consider the angles. Do not act trashly in the case of the child. Sure, leave your wife, but really think about the child and then make your decision. ESH your wife for being a cheater, for which you have every right to dump her, but man, you are not even remotely conflicted about the kid. A kid is more than just a show-off trophy for the fact that your sperm works. Dude, at least pretend you loved him her a little. Info: have you actually done a paternity test? If not, don't be surprised if the courts order you to. But even if the kid was conceived around the time your wife was cheating, it's basically a 50-50 shot that the kid is yours, unless there were a bunch of other guys. Then your odds drop. But it's still possible. I mean, you are not obligated to raise a kid that isn't technically yours, even though it is shitty that the kid will have to learn about daddy leaving him even if you aren't his dad. Oh, and your soon-to-be ex is definitely an ass. A paternity test has not been done yet. I live in Germany and it can only be done if both parties agree or if the court orders it. A negative paternity test could also free me from paying child support. So it is not for granted that my wife agree. However, my wife did confess to me that she is sure the kid is not mine. The kid does not resemble me much at all, but I just brushed that off so far. I am 100% for a paternity test, but it also depends on my wife. Ah, that's shitty. I am in the US, so it's not hard for a guy to demand a paternity test in child support cases. I don't know much about your legal system, but would suggest talking to a lawyer about getting the court to order the test or getting your wife to agree to it. Sure, some kids look just like their parents, but some kids don't look and sound like their parents despite the genetic. Meta comment: men's mental health is important too. Using phrases like "OP should just man up" is a sexist way to view the duties and responsibilities of a human being. Also, expecting paternal services from men just because a child has bonded with them is sexist as well. I think everybody is agreeing that this sucks the most for the child involved. But whether you agree or disagree that OP should father his ex-wife's cheat baby, we need to remember that this guy is a victim, and is likely hurting more than any of us know. I cannot fathom the feelings that would go through my head if I were in this situation. Basically, do not tell men to deal with their problems by manning up. NTA for leaving the wife, but it's a little concerning that you have no attachment to a child you have been raising and did believe was yours. For that you are a massive asshole. That child is innocent, and although your wife is to blame for the affair and lying, you are the one damaging the child by abandoning them. God, I love Reddit. I will never understand how a bunch of people, who presumably do not have any kids, can say yay, duck that kid that you literally raised and loved for 5 years. That kid deserves nothing. Like emotional ties to someone you raised for 5 years can just be cut so easily. Laughing my butt off. It's super ducked up. How would these people feel if a parent they loved turned out to not be theirs biologically and that parent cut off contact? Right, like I just read a story from an NPE page. It is basically a page where people support each other after taking one of those 23andMe tests and finding out that their kid is not theirs, or their parents are not their real parent. One guy was talking about how he found out his second child was not his and this wife cheated on him. His first kid blamed the second kid for breaking up the marriage. The daughter was inconsolable. The dad divorced the mom, but still wanted to be with both kids. It was a hard situation for everyone involved. Super heartbreaking to read. It is super ducked up that these people here can just casually say duck that kid just because they are not biologically related. I am not saying that he has to stay and be a dad, but I think it is crazy messed up how flippant people are to how this is going to affect the kid by basically saying not my kid, not my problem, when you raised that kid for 5 years. It makes me question whether they really loved the kid in the first place. ESH. Obviously NTA for leaving your wife, but your child, she is old enough to know you, to know who daddy is, to see you as a father figure. You have loved that child for over 4 years, and now you just do not anymore, not at all, because it does not share your DNA. Leave your wife, she does not deserve you, but it is not the child's fault that her mother cheated, and you leaving now just like that will negatively impact him psychologically. In the end, it is your decision, but do you honestly care so little for the child that you have loved for all those years to not keep some sort of relationship with him? I am sorry OP, this is a horrible situation to find yourself in. That said, I am always amazed when people can just turn off their emotions for a kid in these kinds of situations. I feel like the kid is the ultimate not the asshole in this situation. That said, you can't help how you feel. If your wife's infidelity has caused so much damage that you couldn't parent this child with the love and compassion they deserve, then it's probably best you leave them to it. ESH apart from the kid. ESH, you have every right to leave your wife, and I think you should, but do not close yourself off to the kid. In his eyes you will always be his real father because you are the one who was there when he was born. Make an effort to continue seeing him even if you do not have to pay alimony. NTA for leaving an unfaithful woman, but kinda tough for your willingness to just abandon a child you have been raising. Has a DNA test been done? If she was with you both intimately, there is a chance the child is yours. Maybe start there. I am not gonna rate this one. You are not a bad guy for leaving your wife, but leaving a kid that thought of you as dead just like that is pretty cold. You were forced into the relationship, so I would not pass judgment. That is a hard position to be in. NTA for wanting to leave our wife, but DAF for wanting nothing to do with the kid that, up until now, you cared about and loved. Like you said, it is not the kid's fault and you used to enjoy being his or her father. Right. And like you said, DNA does not matter. It is honestly a bit concerning that you can totally just stop caring about someone that you believed was your child. ESHOP, you may not see this, but that is okay. I was you. In 2002, my now ex-wife became pregnant. I was a young, dumb, testosterone-filled 19-year-old. At the time, I did not know what I eventually came to find out the hard way, but we got married. And in early 2003 a beautiful healthy boy. Fast forward to December 2005, and during an argument about which one of us should be dropping him off at daycare, she drops the bomb of all bombs on me that she was pretty sure he was not mine. From Jan 2002 April 2002 she and I were inseparable. Mid-April 2002 minus mid-May 2002 I was in a way devastated. I demanded a divorce. Working at a hospital, I was able to get a doctor friend to order a DNA test done without the ridiculous costs back then. Sure enough, DNA did not match. During the divorce, I was asked by her to stay out of her and his life. I could have fought it, but I did not. This is the single decision in my life I regret. My advice: you have raised the child, do not let biology stand in the way. NTA, sure, it sucks for the kid, but that is not your fault. That is your cheating and lying wife's fault. In a perfect world, I am sure you had continued to have a relationship with the kid, but this is not a perfect world and your entire relationship was built on a huge lie that you have just now discovered. I would not blame you at all for walking away, and I think the kid will understand when he is older, assuming he learns the truth and his mom does not continue to lie to him, that is. NTA at all. And this whole notion of I am not your daddy but I raised you BS everyone loves to quote forgo TG is stupid. You owe nothing to this asshole of an ex and sucks for the kid but you are not related. Leave and never look back. Tough situation, man. I feel sorry for you. NTA, but the child situation is really difficult. Personally, I do not have memories of me being 5 years old and I did assume that is somewhat normal, so cutting it for good might not be that bad of a decision. However, if you cut the contact, it gotta be permanent. It is worse if you decide 4 years into the future you want contact back. NTA. Anyone saying you are obligated to raise the product of her lies just because it's nice are ridiculous. She did this to the kid, not you. You have zero responsibility here. NTA, this is one of those things where the hive mind has difficulty looking at the situation because the children aspect. I think people like believing they have a moral high ground over others. If the sexes were swapped and the story went more like, I married my husband 7 years ago and I recently found out he had been cheating for the last 5 years. I kicked him out of the house and I am getting a divorce. The sub would cheer and jump on get alimony, get child support, regardless of the fact that he had been the father for 5 years. These situations everyone loses. The reality of this is that the child was duped by the mother into thinking someone else is the father. The real father is not in the picture and needs to be to raise his child, and the duped father is the only one who is ducked here. He will likely be on the hook for child support or stuck in a relationship with someone who has completely betrayed them, and from these ashes he is expected to be a good father and carry the cross that the wife has forced him to bear. To that end, NTA, the biological father should be on the hook for back child support, which should be paid to the duped man who has paid for this child for 5 years. Said biological father should be on the hook for supporting this child to adulthood. This is shitty for him, but he ducked a married woman and 50% caused the pregnancy. The woman should have to live with her shame and the new baby daddy being in her life financially or otherwise while feeling the grief of losing the perfect father she tried to dupe. The guy who lost 7 years of his life to this woman has to ducking start over. The child gets to grow up with a ducked up family because the mom had to duck somebody else and get caught. Everyone loses because of the mother's mistake. Congratulations. It is too bad OP will be paying child support alimony though, because regardless of how I feel it should play out, they are the ones who lost it all. Sorry OP. NTA, cheating is one of the worst things a partner can do, and not only did she cheat, she lied. And as for the child, if you do not want him, you shouldn't have to take him just because your wife is a scumbag. Unpopular opinion here, but NTA, I love my son 100%, but if I found out he wasn't biologically mine and my wife had hid that fact from me, I believe I would feel something similar. I wouldn't hate him as I knew him from day one and our bond has grown, but I would feel some kind of way about him going forward. But we did the 23andMe thing to test for genetic deformities and he's deaf mine, so that won't happen for me. Sorry for your situation OP, I can't even imagine the pain you were going through. Def NTA. NTA, this type of question comes up a lot, and it is always split. Lots of people will argue that it's not the kid's fault and be abused. You have been his parent for X amount of years, you owe it to them to stay. For me, it depends on their age. If they are 20, you 100% raised them from the ground up. They are your kid. Your child is 5. At this age I think it is not insensible to walk away. Most children will get over it, no problems. For example, my ex of 6 years had a son who was born a couple months before we got together. He had custody of the kid. Mom got weekends and some summertime, and I was there all the time. I often took time off college when my boyfriend was at work. I was there until the kid's 6, and we had an awful breakup. I was not allowed to see my stepson anymore. We were not married, but I helped raise him for 6 years. He was my stepson. Because I am still close with my ex's parents, I did see him once every few months, but not for the first year after we broke up. The kid was fine, pretty upset for a couple weeks, but he got over it fast enough and moved on. He is now a very well-adjusted young man. Not the same situation as yours. I appreciate that, but most kids can deal with things like this. If you think this kid cannot, maybe gradually remove yourself. So see him once a week, then once a month, etc. So it is not abrupt, if you think that would help, or if you are willing to. NTA, I am surprised at the number of people saying ESH the wife is a horrible person who did an unforgivable thing. He has every right to leave her. I am assuming that because he raised the child for 5 years thinking she was his, he probably loved the child. However, this revelation is still fresh and he probably has extreme resentment towards his wife. The child probably just reminds him of his wife's affair, and it may be too soon for him to associate with the child and pretend like nothing's wrong. In fact, he could even end up resenting this child. I think he should definitely put his well-being first. If he wants to cool down first and then attempt to have a relationship, he can. People here are essentially asking him to put a child that is not his first and ignore his own feelings. Sure, it will be great to have a relationship with that child, but he is no way obligated to, and not maintaining a relationship because it is too painful doesn't make him an asshole. They are both victims of his wife's affair, and although people are considering the child's well-being, they just want him to suck it up and do something that may be damaging to his own well-being, which I think is extremely unfair. This is a tough situation and there's no right answer. You have to choose between prioritizing yourself over the child or vice versa. There's no winning, at least not this soon. ESH accept the kid. The way you keep referring to someone you once saw as your child as the kid makes you sound incredibly cold and uncaring. I just cannot imagine supposedly loving someone for the first 4 years of their life and then completely abandoning them because of a technicality. Your wife is horrible for cheating on you, but you have to be one cold-hearted asshole to take that out on someone you saw as your child not too long ago. ESH, for the last 5 years you have been a father to this child. What do you think will happen to them when you disappear completely for the rest of their life? Do you have any idea of the damage that you are deliberately and willingly inflicting, and how it will likely travel down through generations? Yes, what your wife did to you was terrible. Yes, you are perfectly justified in divorcing her, but abandoning that child because your feelings are hurt, because they don't share your DNA, makes you an absolute asshole. One day you will look back at this decision. My guess is that you will know that you would have been absolutely capable of continuing a loving parental relationship with this child separate and apart from their mother, and that's going to be a terrible reckoning for you. Please take some time to process your feelings, which are very justified, and see a therapist to work through the best way forward without destroying the small being that has called you daddy their entire life. And for the love of all that is good and holy, can we please make paternity tests at birth mandatory? Potentially ESH, please man, do not cut off that kid. You are entirely in your right to leave your wife, but please keep in contact with the kid. A close friend of mine was that kid. Similar situation, mother was pregnant, dad thought he was his, they got married. 12 years later, it is found out my friend was not biologically his dad's and the dad left. To my friend, that man only cared about him cause he thought he was his biological son. Now think about that. You go 12 years thinking someone loves you, then despite all your shared experience, bonding, and just being together, that person leaves because biologically you are not theirs. At the end of the day, my friend did not ask for this shit and neither did that kid. Yet, here my friend is emotionally ducked up and self-sabotaging his own relationships. That kid is going to end up like that if you leave. I know the kid is not yours, but please just try to be in their life. Does not have to be a huge commitment, but just talk to them sometimes. Show up to birthdays, tell them about your life, It is going to hurt. From your post, it seems like they will be a reminder of your ex-wife's cheating. But please be the bigger man for this kid. They may not be yours biologically, but they still think the world of you. Please do not leave them. Please subscribe.